Hello and welcome to GW Basketball Insiders, coming to you after a pretty surprising Fordham win. First 15 seed to ever win in the Atlantic 10 tournament. They took down Rhode Island earlier, 88-71. So that means that they'll be playing GW tomorrow at 5 p.m.
GW's second game in a row against the Fordham Rams.
Exactly. After Fordham, their last game was against Rhode Island in the regular season.
A lot of repeat opponents here.
Yeah, so a lot of repeat opponents. So, kind of, David, what are the main things that stick out to you about this matchup tomorrow?
I mean, we saw Jackie Johnson III and Jaffe Medor really carry Fordham today. And I know Rhode Island has some defensive challenges, and GW has a much better perimeter defense and defense as a whole. So I don't think that should be as problematic for the Revolutionaries as it was for Rhode Island. But, I mean, I think that was the big story there. They showed that even though no matter how much Fordham has struggled this year, those two guards can sort of will Fordham to at least be competitive in a game against really any opponent.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they did today. Medor had 26 and Jackie Johnson had 29. They were unstoppable. Some of these, impressive finishes at the rim, some three-pointers. There was basically nothing that Rhode Island could do to stop them. So obviously, kind of on the surface level, what does GW have to do to win tomorrow? Well, they got to slow down Medor and Johnson. So
yeah, and I think they're much better equipped to do that than Rhode Island. Like I said, you have a guy like Christian Jones tied for the league lead in steals. Rafael Castro can really control the interior defense. The rest of GW, again, very solid defenders. I'm not super worried about that specific part of the game, and I do not anticipate those two guys having another explosion like they did today.
Yeah, I agree. They weren't as good against GW the last time they played as they were today. I mean, what do you think the impact is, kind of the rest versus rust factor? What would be the impact of the last time GW played was, it'll be 8 days.
I mean, that's always a debate. I mean, you saw Fordham go all out today to get this win. I think they will be tired tomorrow. GW, though, again, they do those. I think there's really no way to view it until you see it on the court. It could be a positive, it could be a negative. It all just depends on sort of what we see. Well, Liam, before we wrap this up, I just want to read. I asked Coach Ergo during the press conference, his immediate reaction to having to face GW again, and I just want to read you this quote because I think it's really interesting, and we'll sort of leave it at this before we hear from Chris Caputo, who we spoke to at halftime of the Fordham Rhode Island game. So this is what Ergo had to say. I think that Coach Chris Caputo has done a phenomenal job with this group. I think they're one of the most connected when you watch them on film and seeing them live. They're not the most talented. They're very talented, don't get me wrong, but they're not the most talented in the league, but they're one of the most connected in the league. You can tell they all know their roles. They're tough, they're physical, they make open shots, they're willing to defend, they're very good defensively. And obviously Castro, I think he's the second most efficient player in the entire Atlantic 10. Really talented big who can pass and score. They present a lot of challenges for us. We've got to be really connected on the defensive end. Looking forward to getting another chance, and I think these guys are too. We weren't ourselves in that game. They got off to a really good start, and then in the second half they went on an explosion and couldn't miss. We've got to be much better in the half court on the defensive end. And I think Coach Ergo put it great. GW has been really connected this year, and they are a great defensive team. And I think, just like it presented them last week, I think it will continue to present Fordham with a lot of challenges in this second round Atlantic 10 tournament matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. Fordham is kind of, anyone who watched the GW Fordham game, anyone who's watched a lot of Fordham this year, they're just not a very good defensive team. So obviously GW, they can't just show up and expect to win. They've got to kind of do what they did last week against Fordham. So to a certain extent, it's nice to have that blueprint of here's what we did well, started well, had a big explosive run in the second half. So that's something that hopefully they'll be able to emulate tomorrow. Probably gonna have to hit a few three-pointers. So so that's where we're going to leave it right now. We've got an interview with Chris Caputo coming up, which we recorded at halftime of the Rhode Island Fordham game, and then an interview with Ryan Puleo, which we recorded also at halftime of the same game. The audio in those is good enough; you'll be able to understand it, but I'm sure you can understand that it's a bit difficult to record audio in a loud arena like that. So bear with us and be nice.
Yeah, the $20 lav mics I got on Amazon are not the best, but they can do the job. Now, here are Chris Caputo, and then after Chris Caputo, Ryan Puleo.
David, Korn, and Liam Worker here with the GW Basketball Insiders Show with a very generous Chris Caputo giving us some time at halftime of the Fordham Rhode Island game. These are the two teams that GW could face tomorrow. So I think sort of our first question is, going into this, sort of scouting it, what do you look for in this type of game?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's a unique circumstance. You played Fordham a week ago, and they played each other. Even though we played Rhode Island 2 months ago, they played each other in the last game of the regular season. So, you do have a fair amount of familiarity with Fordham. I don't think Fordham played their best, quite honestly, against us last week. That we did a nice job, but I think they've been playing very well. And yet, pretty competitive game on Saturday against Rhodey. Rhodey is just, kind of refamiliarized ourselves with them. We played them, without David Green and without Fuchs, so a little bit different team. So, probably a little bit more familiar here with Fordham just because of the recency bias, and then a chance to kind of dive in on Rhodey and see where they're at two months after.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you talk about kind of the logistics of in-person scouting? Because obviously, I'd imagine maybe with the exception of the MTE this year, this is the only time you've really done in-person scouting.
Yeah, it's the only time you're allowed. Yeah.
Because kind of what's the difference in in-person scouting and kind of not in-person?
Yeah, I mean, look, you get a little bit better feel. You probably get some calls, things like that. You might look a little bit more, you can see the body language of the guys and things like that you can tell a little bit about kind of maybe where they're at. You should have some familiarity going into the game. It's not like the first time. Sometimes when you go in an MTE and, maybe it's the third game and you're live scouting, you're really not as familiar with the team. But in league play, I think it's just more, maybe trying to get some calls, trying to get a little bit more of a feel for kind of where they at this moment. And then we'll go back and, again, watch the tape again to kind of make sure there's, hey, what have they added? As teams go into conference play, they start to add, an out-of-bounds play or, an action or maybe something defensively. And so, it's unique, whereas, in the NBA, you have advanced scouting and those guys are, they're out ahead of the team and they're, providing a lot of information. For us, it's different.
So, Coach, you're coming out of sort of a unique situation here with the bye in the last week of the season, and it also looks like you just played for it. So it's sort of, how have these practices gone sort of with this longer layoff, and what are you doing to make sure that you and the team are sort of staying fresh and staying in sort of game shape heading into this game?
Well, we needed the break. We went 7.5 weeks, with playing, really Wednesday, Saturday, with I think just a little bit of an exception maybe on the Tuesday game and a Sunday game. So for us, we needed it mentally, physically. We took 2 days off. We had somebody who comes and works with our team on some kind of mental preparation stuff come in, which I think was really helpful. And then we practiced Saturday. We did some skill work Sunday. Took Monday off, and then it's back to 2-day prep plus the shoot around because it's a 5 o'clock game. So I thought it was a much needed rest, and then in turn we had great I thought energy because of it, in practice.
Yeah. So I've heard there's it's a different ball that you guys will be playing with. So kind of what kind of impact does that have, if any, beyond the different?
Yeah, we try to, there's no uniform ball for college basketball. So if you play Nike school, often they're going to use a Nike ball. If you play an Adidas school, they're going to use an Adidas ball, Under Armour, what have you. There's also teams that use the Wilson. There are teams that use the Spalding ball. So if we're going on the road, the ball that we use in practice will be the ball we're going to play with. So we have a bunch of those balls, in the facility. And so it's no different. I mean, we're using the Spalding ball in practice this week just to get familiar with the ball.
Yeah, so I know one
hasn't hurt their shooting. I mean, both these teams have made some threes.
Yeah, I mean, Fordham's shooting the lights out.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
far at halftime again. We're not going to free two. We don't know what could happen. We're at halftime right now, so we're going to try and make this as evergreen as possible. One thing you've talked about a lot this year is how young of a team you have.
Yeah.
So how, and even some of the guys with experience, this may be their first time, having a bigger role on a tournament team. In a situation like that. So what do you do to sort of help get these guys ready and make sure they're in the right headspace for a postseason game?
Well, we had Brian Kite come in who works with us and it's kind of a, I don't know, it's like a culture coach, I guess is one of the ways, but talked a lot about, tournament play and things like that. And we've got to take another step, I think winning 20 games in the regular season for the first time in 9 years is a great step for us.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. And, having the best net we've ever had, having the best Ken Palm in 9 years or whatever. So all those things are good steps. Now we get to postseason play, like taking a step by, winning a game in the tournament or 2 or 3 or 4 would be great. So I think for us, like everything this year, I think we've taken like a nice step forward. Now this is another opportunity to do that here.
So obviously, A10 tournament in DC this year. Can you just kind of talk about the logistics, the maybe convenience of having the A10 tournament?
Yeah, I've never been in this scenario in all my years. It's always travel, and so it's pretty unique. Certainly when I was at George Mason, we played NCAA tournament games in this building, and that was, logistically you still have to stay in a hotel and all that. But certainly our hotel is around the corner from campus. And
yeah, I find it interesting that you guys are playing or staying in a hotel at all.
I think every team has to stay in a hotel. Yeah. But yeah, obviously you're making use of your facility, which usually when you go on the road in these tournaments, there's 15 teams in town the first couple of days. Everyone's kind of fighting for gym space somewhere. Yeah. Certainly when you're in New York, it's even more difficult because the Big East is going on at the same time, and so I think that's been a little bit easier. An extra night, in your room is probably a good thing in your own bed. So that part of it's easier. I was joking, if I forgot something to pack, I'd just drive home and get it. But yeah, look, now that we'll be in the hotel tonight, the routine will be very similar to what it would be like if we were on the road somewhere.
Yeah. And last one here, like you said, tournaments in DC. What is your message to some fans who maybe are 50-50 on making the trip out tomorrow?
I mean, the weather's great, but you should just walk over here. I mean, 5 o'clock's perfect right after work. Go get a drink, come on over. This will be a great opportunity to come support our program, and then hopefully we can stick around for a few days and just, crescendo up to more and more fans. But we've got to show out here as best we can. I think, when this building is crowded, it'll make for great environment.
Yeah, all right, Dan. Thank you so much for your time today. We know you're busy with the Scout. Appreciate you giving us a few minutes.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Awesome.
David Korn of the GW Basketball Insiders. You just heard or watched our interview with GW men's basketball head coach Chris Caputo, and now the second most important GW basketball figure, Ryan Puleo, sitting alone for the pillow fight that GW is not in. Dayton fans are buying you beers. You're taking off work. What's the scene? Set the scene for us.
Well, it's a great time. Obviously, top down. Everybody's got to be doing the scouting. That's why I'm here. I'm scouting as a fan. The coaches are here scouting. The players are here scouting. That's all I got to do it too. It's really it takes all of us. It really does. To kind of win this one. That's what we're looking for here. Also, it's a nice day outside.
And so you're inside.
I am inside. Yeah. So I figured what better way to spend the first spring week of the year than inside of a windowless arena.
I love
watching a bunch of teams who finished bottom of the conference face off.
So Ryan, no dribbling George is available today.
No,
this game, right?
George, no.
How are we adapting?
Well, as everything, you travel, you're on the road, you got to adapt. So I think we're going with Michelob Ultra today. That's why I had the nice Dayton fan bought me that. I'm not buying beer today.
Story. Yeah. Why did a Dayton fan buy you a beer?
Well, obviously they were a little upset after beat them, and they chose to come after me and kind of the way I looked. And then
was this the guy?
The guy said that I got a very big nose. So he was like, "Yeah, man, sorry about it. I felt bad." Some people were a little overboard. I'm like, "Yeah, no worries about it." And by the way, his nose was kind of really big too. So that's all I'm saying. But but I didn't say anything to him. So I was like, "Want beer?" I was like, "Hey, even though it's like noon on Wednesday, it's like, why not? I'm here having a great time celebrating the game. So yeah, here we are.
A10 basketball, bringing people together. So I think someone who may not be buying you a beer are some George Mason fans.
I hope not. I'm throwing their face.
Looking ahead in the bracket, there is a potential quarterfinal matchup between number 7 GW and number 2 George Mason.
There is.
Again, not to look too far ahead, what's your first take on that?
That would be the biggest rivalry playoff matchup since the Copa Libertadores final in 2020, where it was Boca Juniors versus River Plate.
Okay.
That's South America's biggest rivalry, and they faced off in the championship of South America's biggest game. So I mean, it'd be like 2 levels above that. It'd be the biggest game ever, probably. It's gonna be mayhem that happens.
Ryan, why should GW fans come out to these games?
Well, it's at 5 o'clock. It's a nice little post-work that you got going on. We had a good season. It was, good season. Lots goes on, and we're really just out here. It's a chance for us to kind of, make our foot, put our stamp on the season. So it's a lot to look forward to, and it's right there. It's good stuff. Yeah.
I love it, Ryan. Ryan
Yeah.
Puleo, GW basketball superfan. Thank you for joining.